they have these elaborate strategy meetings and they come up with these great plans. Sometimes they even come to blows coming up with that plan. And then they walk out of the room, save the plan in some obscure folder on their hard drive and never open it again until the following year when it's time to review the plan. And usually the first question is, how come we didn't do anything we said we'd do?
Today, I'm excited to welcome Calvin Williams to the show. Now, Calvin is the founder of a company called Impruver, and we talked a little bit about that product. It's a cool little product that it is very applicable for those in the lean movement. So highly recommend folks check that software out. But today, Calvin and I jump into the topic of leadership standard work. And so when we first hear that word, leader standard work, we often think about the, maybe like the daily planner of who's going to do what and when you're going to do it and that sort of thing. And we definitely talk about that. But I would say this conversation is possibly a little bit wider than that as well. It almost encompasses more of a Hoshin style way of organizing our continuous improvement efforts. And so it was we had a lot of fun talking about how different organizations might structure their continuous improvement efforts, starting at senior leadership and cascading down. And then really the second part of the conversation kind of got, we stayed with the whole theme of leadership, but we really got into just talking about how continuous improvement principles might be able to help those of us, which is all of us, dealing with this coronavirus pandemic and how we might think our way through the situation. Obviously, we have no crystal ball and we don't have all the answers, but it was just it was an interesting conversation, just kind of brainstorming potential ideas of things and ways that we might face the uncertainty that we're all dealing with. Show notes for this episode can be found over at gembapodcast.com. Just look for episode 318. Again, gembapodcast.com and look for episode 318. Okay, enough from me. Let's get to the show. Calvin Williams, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Going great, Ron. Thanks for having me.
All right. So what part of the country are you calling in from, Calvin?
I am in Atlanta, Georgia, just north of Atlanta, actually, a town called Roswell, just up 400. Yep. Nice. Y'all's traffic is a little bit out of control, I got to tell you, man. Yeah, typically, yes.
I mean, right now it's not, I'm sure, but goodness gracious, during normal times. I
guess that's a silver lining in the midst of everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really, gosh, I'm here I'm in Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I mean, we're nothing like Atlanta, but it's, it can get wild, especially if you're going down towards Dallas. But
yeah.
But anyhow, well, hey, I'm excited to have you on the show, Calvin. We've got a really fun topic and a topic that I feel like is very very important, especially in these times of uncertainty right now with coronavirus and all this kind of crazy stuff going on right now. Our ability to kind of manage ourselves and have good leader standard work is super important. But before we dive into the topic of the day, Calvin, we like to begin all of our episodes with our guest sharing a quote. So do you have one that you want to share?
I do. I regret to say that I don't know who said it.
Okay.
If I probably search Google long enough, I could figure it out. But the quote goes something like this: "Change is inevitable. The only thing we can do is proactively work to ensure things change for the better."
Very appropriate for the times that we're in, even, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, one of the best things that I've seen a lot resonating a lot, especially within the continuous improvement world, is we are often all talking about, let's get when things get back to normal, or whatever normal is. I was like, let's get back to better, right? Let's get back, and when we back, it's better than it was, before we head into this thing, right? So
I've had several conversations on this, and I just think, despite what you hear and despite the chaos of it all, there's going to be new opportunities presented. Mm-hmm. And the folks who, the way I look at it is, luck happens when preparation meets opportunity. And the folks who are prepared, the folks who are being proactive, they're going to be first in line to capture on some of those new opportunities of the new economy, new post-COVID economy.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, hey, Calvin, tell us a little bit about your background. Tell us how you first got into all this continuous improvement stuff, and then tell us what you're up to these days with Impruver.
Yeah. So I graduated with the industrial engineering degree from University of Nebraska in Lincoln. I'm a 20-year professional in continuous improvement, operations leadership. Started out with Tyson, worked for Nestle, Mars, Colgate. Most recently, senior manager of global continuous improvement with Clorox. I was leading their TPM program over 36 factories globally.
Mm.
I like to think that I was always in continuous improvement. If you ask my mom, she will probably agree with that. uh, but professionally, probably 20 years in various roles between CI, ops leadership, and also management consultant for some time.
Mm-hmm.
Just recently, 2 years ago now, I've been building a technology product called Improver, and I just went full time. I realized to make something like this work, you probably can attest to this. To make something like this work, you got to go in head first and make it happen, do what it takes. And I just decided to make the plunge and make it happen. So
Nice.
we're on our way. Yeah.
Nice. And Improver is spelled Impruver. What's the story behind that?
You know, there had to be a story behind the U, right?
Wasn't available on URL, so I'll just spell it this way, right?
Well, that's part. No. Actually, the U stands for. I guess it's a value of mine. It's improvement starts with you, right? It starts with wanting to be better yourself, and then propagating that desire for self improvement onto leading others to improve. And leading an organization down a continuous improvement journey really starts with a journey of yourself and self betterment.
I like it.
And leading by example. Yeah.
I like it. All right. Well, Hey, let's jump into the topic of the day, kind of leader standard work. Some folks call it leadership standard work. Tell us what leadership or leader standard work means to you.
Yes. So leadership standard work to me, and you're right, I've heard it called both, is a system of it's a structure or a layered review process that keeps the organization aligned with continuous improvement and what the company's trying to accomplish overall. It helps drive the CI process, and it also helps to sustain any gains you make through continuous improvement, right? So it's a system of meetings and reviews that encompass executive managers, leads, and essentially everyone in your organization from top to bottom, and just keeps the organization moving in the right direction at the right speed to accomplish its overall goals.
Okay.
Right?
And so just so folks maybe aren't, so this might be slightly different than like when I think of leader standard work, I think of like, my daily kind of calendar and my plan, kind of like personal leader standard work. So maybe this is more organizational. Is that what you're kind of getting at?
I think it encompasses both sides, right?
Okay.
So, so at the highest level, right, for executives, for example, the leadership, if you think about people as vectors, right, where everybody's moving at a certain speed and in a certain direction. The role of executive leadership is to keep everybody moving in the right direction, right? Executive leadership decides what direction we should all be moving in. At a layer, the next layer down where you got sort of manager, director, senior manager level folks, they're sort of making sure the resources are being allocated most effectively so that, the organization can move in that right direction and at the right speed. If you think about a layer from that is, the leads, the folks who are sort of overseeing the value stream, the value added work, they're sort of coordinating, what needs to be done and by when to make sure the right things happen so that we're prepared for the future. And then the folks on the value stream are doing the tactical day-to-day work. So if you look at the calendar of anybody on that sort of that chain of authority, you'll see, okay, these are the 4 or 5 things I need to do today in order to make the future that the company needs to realize happen. So I think it touches both. I think it touches the bigger picture, where we're going, but it also touches, all right, what's on my plate today in order to make that bigger picture reality.
How do you see it aligning with something like policy deployment or Hoshin Kanri, something like that? How do you see it if at all, working with that?
So I see Hoshin in two ways, right? There's the coming up with the strategy. That's, what is it that we want to accomplish? What's most critically important for us to accomplish?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the piece of actually deploying that down through the organization and cascading those priorities down so that you align everyone in the company behind, align everyone's efforts behind that critically important set of imperatives. So yeah, I think there's a direct piece of it. And in fact, part of the layered review process at the highest layer, we encourage companies to be having that strategy conversation every 90 days. Because as you know, there aren't a lot of companies who are terribly good at strategy deployment in Hoshin Kanri.
Right.
So what you tend to see a lot is, they have these elaborate strategy meetings and they come up with these great plans. Sometimes they even come to blows coming up with that plan. And then they walk out of the room, save the plan in some obscure folder on their hard drive and never open it again. Until the following year when it's time to review the plan, and usually the first question is, how come we didn't do anything we said we'd do?
Or there's that sense of panic of looking at it and praying you actually did some of it, right?
Exactly. So it's a fun exercise. It's a great thought exercise a lot of time, but I think a lot of companies really struggle to put it into practice, and they really can't translate those great ideas. They're usually great ideas down into real daily tactical execution.
Yep.
So
do you have maybe an example of how you've seen this work? Maybe like a case study or something like that?
So, I actually first was exposed to leadership standard work at Clorox. I was working as a senior manager of global continuous improvement. Right, we had a plant in Costa Rica who had been experimenting with leadership standard work to drive autonomous maintenance. Right, this is things like operator PMs and tracking micro stops and addressing abnormalities and things like that. 5S. And they had a sort of a go out once a quarter and review and make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do to maintain autonomous maintenance. And then I sort of took benchmark that, added some things to it, and then kind of spread that around to about 16 or 17 other plants. But just recently, so I left Clorox in October of I think 18. Just recently, I was working with the client. We were doing an Impruver implementation. It was a 90-day implementation. It was our first beta project with a real manufacturer, right? Company called World Technology Ingredients, WTI. It was a 90-day engagement, and we went in, and essentially what we ran through was a weekly continuous improvement meeting, right? So the way the structure, leadership standard work structure as it stands, is you have a 90-day strategy review, you have a 30-day steering committee meeting, you have a weekly CI team meeting, and the CI team is really a sort of an innovation team. They're coming up with the ideas and experiments. And then you have a daily Gemba review, right? So during the 90-day implementation, what we did was sort of forced in the weekly CI team. This is the innovation team. It's almost like a Kaizen team where we met weekly and we said, hey, what did we try last week? What did we learn from it? And what are we going to try next week? And we had the data and everything to support that conversation, right? And over the course of that 90 days, we saw a nearly doubling of their production capacity, right?
Wow.
Yeah, this was about a 97%. It was incredible. In a space where they didn't see any further room for improvement, we were just experimenting to see how people would take the software, right? So they were trying to grow. They could sell everything they make. They were in a great position on the top side, but they had production constraints. So this is what we decided to focus on. So yeah, they saw a doubling of throughput. The thing what happened though, and this was a great learning for me, is after that 90 days, we kind of packed up and left them be, because we figured they got it, they can keep going. And after that 90 days, we packed up, we left. We would do weekly check-ins and see kind of where they are in their progress, right? We just expected they would just keep killing it, right? Keep skyrocketing up. And what we learned was that they kind of flatlined, right? They had all this great growth and they just kind of flatlined. So After a few of those 30-day check-ins, they asked us to come back and implement in a different area. But what we proposed is, hey, man, why don't we, me and my professional services team, why don't we go back and figure out, kind of diagnose what the challenges were to continue the progress that we had started on. It turns out that they kind of sort of let the weekly innovation meetings, those weekly CI meetings, languish a little bit, and it just led to them flatlining and no longer driving further improvement in that space. So then we said, without the monthly steering committee meeting of managers and senior managers, the CI meetings, the weekly CI meetings, probably don't have the energy and focus to sustain, right, and the directions to sustain and keep going. And without the 90-day strategy conversations, the steering committee meeting will eventually start to lose focus and probably fail to sustain, right? And then without that whole infrastructure in place, then your daily Gemba walks kind of go their own way also. So then, it kind of led to us really putting our heads together and saying, all right, if we were to do a enterprise-wide, really engage leadership, really kind of rope everybody into to continuous improvement, into the process, and even make it cross-functional where other functions can apply the same concepts of continuous improvement in their spaces too. What would that look like? We sort of filled it out, and we came up with the leadership standard work process that we were describing here.
Mm-hmm. So it's more of a cascading kind of concept, starts at the very top, and then subsequently rolls down throughout the organization. And sounds like if any one of those kind of breaks down, everything below it, wherever it broke down, is going to be in trouble.
That's exactly right. So the workflow is like this. At the executive level, you got the 90-day meetings. What they're really asking is for each of our imperatives, hopefully it's around 3. I've seen places that have 10, 15, 20. That's not very strategic at all. Strategy is, let's decide what we are going to do, most critical, important, and let's not try to do everything. Are we on track, behind, or ahead on those imperatives? For the ones that we're behind, they'll get red flagged as these are, high risk areas. Those will get carried down into the steering committee meeting where resources get allocated. Right? Let's move cash. Let's move capital. Let's move equipment, space, whatever we have, people, and let's start addressing those challenges. Right? Let's shift our focus here. They may also assign a CI team to address, those red flag items. Right? Next thing that will happen is they may launch a weekly CI team. Basically, they get together, they become the innovation team to address that red flag item. And then the Gemba walk sort of supports the CI team, right? The CI team sort of commandeers the Gemba board and the Gemba conversation for that initiative. And for each of those layers, you're essentially going through the kata process, right? You're asking the coaching questions. So, for example, at the executive level, the conversation might go, hey, Johnny, you own this initiative. What's your target condition? What's your actual condition? Can you validate that with data and facts? What are your challenges in that space? What are you going to try to do next? When can we go see? So if you think of the kata coaching framework or thought process, or even scientific thinking in general, as fractal, meaning, it looks the same at the highest level as it looks at the lowest level. Essentially, they're just kind of going through those cadences at essentially all levels within the framework.
What's interesting, given our current situation with the world and COVID-19 and all the rest of it, like, what do you think? And I'm just thinking out loud right now. I have no idea where this conversation is about to go, so we can always cut it out if it doesn't go well. But
no
like,
problem.
what do you? I mean, this is not your first rodeo, Calvin, as far as leading organizations and dealing with problems and all the rest of it. But we were talking before we hit record that one of the things that is constant is that one group of people if you even just think politics, one side is sure that they know the right way, and the other side is sure that they're wrong and that they have their own way. When in essence, my personal belief, this is my opinion, not even Gimba Academy's, my opinion, is that, nobody knows nothing. Right? I don't care if you're conservative, liberal, in the middle, nobody knows nothing. Right?
It's true.
We have all these models and all the rest of it. I mean, at the end of the day, if we really do buy into this idea of scientific thinking and continuous improvement, I guess are you of the opinion that we need to, obviously carefully and cautiously experiment? But if we don't experiment, how will we ever move forward? Right?
That's a great point.
So on one side, we're all about experiment, charge forward, be brave. But then another was like, man, I don't know, man. This is kind of scary, right?
Do I want to be the guinea pig in that experiment? Is the question.
for real. So like, how do we balance that? I mean, if we really are scientific thinkers, what's the right way? I mean, because never trying ever, isn't obviously going to probably move us in the right direction. If we just sit at home for the next 5 years, what do you think?
I would imagine the smartest way to do this, and you're right. I mean, if you're a politician, it's not so much about what you know as what you can get others to believe. And, right. Yeah, speaking to what people will want to hear, sort of.
Yep.
In the media, is a big player in it, and they're speaking to what people might fear and what can get clicks. Mm-hmm. But as a scientist, I guess we are scientists in a sense. Mm-hmm. You want to form a hypothesis, you want to test it out, you want to see what happens, and then you can say with some degree of confidence that you know something, right? Mm-hmm. And even then there's still a degree of confidence and you could be wrong still. But in a perfect world, I think we would all be, with our lab coats on here, all curious and working together on the same page and saying, okay, here's what we got going in this situation. This would be a good lab for us to test. Maybe that's in New York or maybe that's some other place, depending on what we're testing. Mm-hmm. And we'd all be moving, learning together, under one set of controlled experiments. Yeah. I'm not sure that, it's a little bit of chaos in the sense that, I don't know if we're all working together on this,
No, we're not, obviously, and it's so, maybe it, and it's almost like the problem with this experiment is the ultimate lagging indicator here is death, right? And nobody wants to come close to that, right? So it's like we've got to find earlier indicators, right? More leading indicators of whether or not we're doing the right things. And I don't pretend to have the answers, obviously, but I just find it interesting, the parallels between, running an experiment, making a prediction, seeing what we learn, and then adapting and evolving from that. But boy, it sure is difficult when people's lives are on the line, right?
Yeah, I almost wish that we had leadership standard work at a national level, right? Because what we might be doing is having those weekly innovation meetings and saying, all right, what did we try last week? Yeah. What did we learn from it? What will we try next week? That would be so fantastic to be in the room for those conversations.
Yeah, and being vulnerable and being vulnerable and saying, the fact of the matter is we don't know. But this is the experiment we want to run, and the caution that we're going to build into the experiment so we don't, have a devastating, if it doesn't work out, that we don't have a devastating result. But I guess unfortunately that's not our reality, but to some extent, I mean, I got a lot of friends that are in healthcare and, got nurses and doctors and all the rest of it, and it does sound like at some level there is a lot of collaboration. We don't always hear about that on the news, and the media doesn't always share those positive stories, but I do take heart that there's a lot of good people out there, a lot of smart people out there who are trying to experiment and learn and work together.
Yeah, I'm confident we'll come out on the other side of this smarter and more capable, and hopefully we can become as healthy as we once were.
Yeah, for sure.
Collectively.
Yep.
But like I said, I think this, for those who are watching this with their eyes open and see what's going on, what's really going on, this is going to create a lot of new opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And the best thing we can do for us who are in quarantine on lockdown, cutting our own hair.
I told you I cut my hair the other day by myself, man. Turned out okay, man. I'm not going to lie. See, I ran the experiment, man.
Yeah, you're doing good. You're doing good. For those of us who are, just watching and preparing, the best thing we can do is just be prepared for the new opportunities that this creates for us.
Yeah.
And as continuous improvement professionals, the best thing we can do is make sure we are ready and that the organizations who depend on us are also ready to hit the ground running.
I was talking to my colleague, Steve Kane, earlier today. He and I did a little virtual workshop with a client of ours. And one of the things that we're kind of talking about is, how to deal with uncertainty, because that's what we've got, right? I mean, and uncertainty is like one of the worst feelings ever, right? Like just people value certainty so much, right? From a psychological perspective. And when we don't have certainty, we can be wrecked. And so as continuous improvement practitioners, one could say, oh yeah, you gotta be ready for the next pandemic or whatever. But Steve shared the story of 9/11 during 9/11, and I wish Steve was here to tell the story. He could do it better than I do because he's a pilot as well. But apparently, when it was all going down and they had all these airplanes in the air and they had to land them as fast as possible, right? I mean, had to get every airplane out of the sky. And so wherever you were, you find the closest airport that will accommodate your size plane and get on the ground, right? And and it worked. All the other, that weren't involved in a tragedy, obviously, all the other ones were able to safely land. And so after it was all said and done, and they were reflecting and trying to figure out, what to take from it, the kind of air traffic control organizations were talking about, like, well, how do we, what do we do? How do we come up with the exact plan, or what to do next time something bad like this happens? And essentially what Steve was saying they concluded was that, we don't need to come up with an exact plan, because it's never going to come out exactly how we think it might.
Exactly. Right.
But the thing to really practice, if you will, is how to think quickly, safely, scientifically, right? And in the moment. And so if there's any preparation that we should all be doing, it's how can you deal with uncertainty? How can you experiment? How can you learn quickly when faced with uncertainty? And so figuring that out, I think, is probably a better use of our time than trying to create the ultimate FMEA or whatever it might be, where, you try to predict every potential failure mode that could ever strike the earth, because it's just, I don't know. So I thought it was interesting.
It's almost like you're practicing uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
You're injecting chaos to some extent just to stay sharp.
Yeah.
So when it's a real chaotic situation, it's not so unfamiliar.
Yeah. We had Sam McPherson do a webinar a week or so ago, and, Sam's background is he's Green Beret, and, he's done a lot of special forces training, and they had this red teaming and blue teaming, where the red team is wargaming, if you will, against the blue team and trying to find all the weaknesses. And I feel like that's a great exercise to figure out, how we can do that. So the same organization kind of, okay, you're on team A and you're on team B, trying to poke holes in everything that team B is trying to do, and team B, reacts and adjusts accordingly, that sort of thing. So maybe there's some more practical value to having those team building, retreats and things like that, where you can get away from the office and play games. Yeah. And see how people handle it. Yep. Exactly. Because knowing how to, that's what we are talking about. Learn how to think. Right. It's not like you're going to have the perfect playbook the next time the next pandemic hits our hits our the country or the world, there's going to be some differences, but can you think through it? Can you practice PDCA, right? Real time. With when bullets are flying, can you stay calm, right? And
there's value in saying, hey, this is the thing that did the trick for us last time around. Let's start with that one first.
Yep.
And be prepared to experiment on top of that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, you obviously don't ever want to dismiss what you've learned, right? I mean, of course. But if we're thinking it's going to happen the exact same way, that's when it's like when our playbook doesn't work anymore because there's a new variable.
Exactly.
Can you adapt? Can you be agile, right? To steal.
I think that's the word of this for me. The big takeaway is adaptiveness.
Yeah.
Can you adapt? Because I think the companies that are doing the best at adapting are winning.
Yeah.
And the companies that haven't been able to adapt.
Yeah.
For example, if you're a small business like, a restaurant or a bar or something, if after, how many weeks has it been? I don't know, 6 weeks, let's call it.
Mm-hmm.
You still haven't figured out how to sell your stuff online.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way you're going to make it through this.
Right.
Unless you just had a boatload of cash to sit on.
Yeah.
Which most businesses don't. If you haven't adapted to an online world by now, then there's a good chance you're not going to make it out on the other side.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
As a business.
Yeah.
I mean, the people will make it, a majority of us, but as a business, you got to be adaptive.
Yeah.
You got to be ready. You got to be willing to try things and change. And that's what I like about, I think, continuous improvement. If you're really practicing CI in your company and you're serious about it, and to your point, you're preparing for the unexpected, you're keeping your organization on edge for the unpredictable, you're inherently going to be more adaptive.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have the strength to change, to create the company that you need to be to fit the market, to fit the world outside the company.
Yep.
Yep. I think that's critical.
Exactly. Well, good stuff. Yeah, I wasn't sure where that was going to go, but I think it was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good. No, it's good conversation.
All right. Well, hey, Calvin, what is what's the best way for folks to connect with you on social media, your website, whatever it might be?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. You can find me, Calvin L. Williams, or find Impruver. Our business page is out there as well, mm-hmm. Impruver Technologies. Mm-hmm. Or if you go to Impruver.com, Impruver.com, mm-hmm. I'm there. My team is there. Anything we offer is out there as well. Mm-hmm. We got a lot of great stuff, most of it free. Mm-hmm. We really advocate for the continuous improvement as an industry and continuous improvement professionals. Mm-hmm. Just trying to help folks accelerate their journey on CI using, information, using technology, using whatever we can offer, services, professional services, et cetera. So. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. I was telling you before we hit record that you got that radio DJ voice. So, man, worst case, you can always fall back and go on the radio or something, Calvin.
Hey, man, whenever we get through social distancing, maybe we'll throw some big parties and I can DJ or something.
That's it. That'll work. I like it. All right, Calvin. Well, hey, man, you guys be safe out there in Georgia. Thanks for coming on to the show, and hopefully we can connect face to face, sometime in the near future.
Oh, it was a pleasure, Ron. I appreciate it. Look forward to doing it again sometime.
All right. Take care.
All right. You too. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Whether you've been on the continuous improvement journey for many years, or perhaps you're just getting started, Gemba Academy is here to support you. And while we're best known for our more than 1,500 Lean and Six Sigma teaching and virtual tour videos, we also have a team of experienced Lean and Six Sigma practitioners available for one-on-one coaching, as well as a variety of Lean and Six Sigma certification options. To learn more and to schedule a demo, head on over to gembaacademy.com.